It feels like a big intervention in the nightmare over unsafe cladding on flats. The government says buildings below 18 metres tall will not need a cladding safety certificate. So those flats, in theory at least, can be bought and sold freely and be okay for mortgages as well. Steve Day is on the line, who is a resident of the Royal Artillery Quays in London and is behind proposals for a kind of polluter pays law to protect leaseholders. Morning to you, Mr. Day.
Good morning.
Am I over-egging it to say it's a big intervention?
Yes. Yes, frankly, there are issues with this intervention because it's to do with the safety certificate attached to lenders. So lenders have all got to sign up for a start. It doesn't really deal with the safety of the buildings because that's to do with building regulation compliance. Which is a separate set of regulations. And just to give you an idea, they're saying that buildings under 18 metres can be treated with a risk-based approach. But to give you an example, Newtonite ran a store in Richmond House, and that was 10 metres, and that burnt down due to defective cavity barriers. So what we're saying is leaseholders would still have costs of alarms, sprinkler systems for this mitigation. For these medium to low-rise buildings. And then maybe, as in the case of Richmond House, serious issues such as cavity barriers in their case, but missing fire breaks, internal compartmentation issues and so on. And that sounds very technical, but it's really building defects. And these costs will still be there.
Yeah,
so no.
And the key then is eventually who pays them?
Well, that's what our bill is about. We have the answer to that, and that's what we're pushing for.
Which is what?
Well, so the polluter pays bill is basically saying, let's use the same approach as already exists in legislation for contaminated land. So if a developer or another company pollutes some land and then a block of flats is built, then effectively the government, in the form of the Environmental Protection Agency, comes in, sees who's responsible for that land, makes sure that it is contaminated, and then apportions that cost against all those companies that are responsible. And that's saved homeowners millions of pounds. So we're not reinventing the wheel. We're saying, let's do the same here for buildings. And what we're saying, there's two groups of buildings. There's those that weren't built to building regulations enforced at the time of construction. That's where all companies responsible, developers, contractors, insurers, material suppliers, and so on, pay. There are another set of buildings where the building regulations were complied with at the time, but they've changed after Grenfell, and that's where the public money is saved. So what our bill does is it gives the Secretary of State a scheme which removes the limitations because you can't actually sue a lot of these companies after 6 years. It's been proposed as an extension to 15 years, but that still counts us out and many buildings out because we're older than 15 years. And so really what we're saying is make all of those parties pay if they're responsible and save public funds for those where no party can be found as responsible, and also where there's no defects.
Wouldn't it be easier, though, to pay everything out of public funds to start, and then if the government can recoup the money from these organisations, then all the better? Because otherwise it just feels like a sort of morass of legal action that anyway could, even if it went well, could take many years, and meanwhile, presumably people would be trapped.
Well, that's great, because we're not saying we basically delay remediation. There's a building safety fund of grants. Let's extend that so it covers buildings of all heights. It's currently restricted to 80 metres. So all that money gets paid up front now. And we go further in that in this bill. We say, let's apportion that money, 5.1 billion, to give emergency grants and loans right now, because that money exists to all those leaseholders who are facing arrears bombs due to 6,000 a year of service charges, due to 24/7 fire wardens and so on. And let's get that money to them now so they don't go bust, frankly. And also, this scheme, we may come under attack to say, well, actually, it's removing limitations, and that might affect the European human rights of builders. But we've had legal advice, and you have to balance that with the European human rights of homeowners that have built and bought these homes in good faith. So we're saying get the money to people now, don't delay remediation, and pay up front everything, including these interim costs, and then use our scheme to recover the money. And we give them the legal teeth to do that with our scheme.
Steve Day, thank you very much.
And this is one of the solutions. So please try and help us.